I've been looking for this one for a while and finally got my hands on a decent session. This one was really hard to track down for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. Great song. It's simple. One of the more catchy Michael Jackson songs, if you ask me. And the vocals are all gritty and saturated and just wonderfully vintage Michael Jackson. But you don't really hear them as gritty as they are until you get to hear them in isolation. A lot of other Michael Jackson songs like Dirty Diana, that's a really gritty, aggressive performance. But this is about the same. It's just that the melody and the vibe of the song is so much more just upbeat and positive and that sort of inspirational sound that Michael is so good at. It's an interesting phenomenon, really, comparing the different performances of Michael Jackson across all these songs. This one's pretty gritty and pretty aggressive. Really fun to get into. Lots of what I do here on the channel is teach people how to sing, how to discover what their voice can really do. And there's really no better way to start doing that than studying your favorite singers. And that's why these tracks are so cool, because we get a laser-focused view of what they actually did in the studio, studying these multi-tracks. But the next step, if you really want to figure out what your voice can really do and start singing, start being confident and free with your voice, click the link below in the video description and join my free course. When I first opened up these files and did quick little spot listens throughout, I listened to these drums and I thought, that's weird. I wonder if I've got some bad files. But then I went back and listened for what I was hearing, which I'll play you in a second, in the final mix on Spotify, and it sounded the same. But listen to these drums. This is a drum sub of all the programming. There's this bit crusher sort of sample overlap sound on that snare, but the giveaway that it's okay is that the kick sounds fine. That's just the way it sounds. And having gone back to the real mix, it's like, of course, that sounds fine. It sounds good. But it hit me as weird when I first listened to these, and it is a weird sound. It sounds like some phasing where you've got two samples over themselves not quite lined up, and so you have this strange sort of comb filtering or phasing going on. Sounds great in the mix, and just caught me off guard in the isolation. Same kind of thing there. That more of a gated reverb or really interesting sounding effect. I like this. Sort of organic sounding hats and just crazy awesome synthy sounding toms and cymbals. Toms. And this synth collection is just cool. Sort of swing sound, and the way you have the emphasis on this track here on the upbeats is neat push and pull. So pretty. The swells. And listen to these guitars. The arranging that goes into these songs. These are heavily affected instruments here. Clean, direct. Lots of reverb. Very, very in the pocket. I mean, best players in the world. This one is... listen to everything going on here. Actually a stereo. That combination of drone and percussion within the same part is really quite cool. And the way the effects aid in the arranging is even cooler. Snappy strings, low drones. You hear it moving back and forth in the stereo spectrum, and if you weren't listening too carefully, you might think that, this is sort of an overdubbed thing where there's multiple guitar parts going on. I don't think that's the case. I think it's really, really well played. Drone, staccato, snapping those strings, really, really compelling. What you get a feel for in this arrangement is how incredibly simple all the performances are. More so in this song, I think, than some of the other Michael Jackson songs, certainly that I reviewed recently. There's such a simplicity here, and it makes you feel free and empowered to listen to the whole mix. And then when you get into the simplicity of everything, you realize the genius in the arranging. And then we get to the vocals. Now, unlike some of the other sessions I've gotten, this already has effects on it. So they're not raw multi-tracks like some of the other ones that I've gotten. And these are submixed background vocals, but still incredible and kind of fun to hear the reverbs that they actually used on the recordings. Hear that slap delay on the claps? It's so cool.
Hey, pretty baby with the high heels on, you give me fever like I've never ever known. You're just a product of loveliness. I like the groove of your walk, your talk, your dress.
Now, one thing that I noticed about these tracks is they're awfully hot. I mean, you can hear, he's singing in a saturated, gritty way, which he's so good at, and they almost sound in places clipped.
I like the groove.
Right there, I like
the groove of your walk, your talk, your dress. I feel your fever from miles around. I'll pick you up in my car and we'll paint the star. Just kiss me, baby, and tell me twice that you're the one for me. The way you make me feel.
I love that. I've always loved that lead up to the word feel.
Way you make me feel.
And then the way he lets off of feel. So much, just impeccable support. And the way his rhythm leads him into that line.
You're the one for me. The way you make me feel.
Clearly a punch here. Not a punch, just these are a comp. And so we have a stereo representation of all of the lead vocals, and those he would have gotten done recording the verse, and then taking a little bit of a breather while they queued up the chorus, and then he would have gone into that. And this call and response, I mean, talk about just classic nostalgia and bringing me back to my early teens when I first heard this stuff.
The way you make me feel, you really turn me on. You really turn me on. You knock me off of my feet.
Now this is what I'm talking about right here. We'll talk about some other things here in a second, but listen to the way he sings "knock." It knocked me off my feet.
You knock me off of my feet.
I mean, it's so gritty, so compressed, so impassioned.
You knock me off of my feet.
There's not even a pitch there. Yeah. It's so cool sounding. But this is what I mean about it being, there's these spots that are every bit as aggressive and hard hitting as some of the darker Michael Jackson songs, but it comes across as just this empowering energy, inspirational sounding, instead of soul. I mean, well, it sounds like soul instead of overt aggression, which it's just great. We'll get rid of the background vocals. Listen to the snaps.
Feel you really turning me on. You knock me off of my feet.
I just love hearing the stomping of the feet. That's what's happening in the studio. And I've worked with so many vocalists who, when that red light goes on, they lose all sense of freedom. Michael, when that red light goes on, he gains his sense of freedom. And I think that if we can put ourselves in positions as artists, as musicians, as vocalists, where we can sort of abandon into the song, abandon into the recording process, we give ourselves the opportunity to make it feel like a place you can rest instead of a place you have to strive. That's what I hear here. This is where Michael rests as he creates. Talk about inspirational.
You really turn me on. You knock me off my feet. My lonely days are gone. I like this feeling you're giving me.
Now, I never would have heard this much reverb on these parts until now. But in the regular mix, I just don't. The reverb sort of gets buried by the spectrum of the rest of the song. Really interesting that it comes out so much more wet here. Listening on.
I like this feeling you're giving me. Just hold me, baby, and I'm in ecstasy. Oh, I'll be working from 9 to 5.
Notice he's being toms right here, like a percussion instrument. Listen to these background vocals. That neat inhale there too, and you hear that little squeak at the beginning of that. Really, really cool, and how it fits. I mean, he is the band. His persona is the band.
Just hold me, baby, and I'm in ecstasy.
You don't see other toms anywhere. He's being that.
Just hold me, baby, and I'm in ecstasy. Oh, I'll be working from 9 to 5.
And you could argue that this part right here
Baby, and
is the cymbal going into this drum fill.
to buy you things to keep you by my side. I never got so in love before. The promise, baby, you'll love me forevermore. I swear I'm keeping you safe.
Right here, just vintage wonderfulness.
Love me forevermore.
Hear how he sighs out of it? Just try anywhere in your range to sing a note and then sigh out of that note. Give me more. Sing whatever you want. La la la. That is a wonderfully engaging technique. If you can finish off a line where you release, you sigh, you abandon into your head voice. That's what he does there. He does that a lot. That opens up a whole other level of freedom in your voice, especially when you're being rhythmically free at the same time.
The promise, baby, you'll love me forevermore. I swear I'm keeping you satisfied.
Notice how he enters there, right here.
I swear I'm
I swear! That, it's because he's been so playful and free right here
evermore. I swear I'm keeping you.
that he can sort of re-enter. I swear! He can re-enter there in freedom. He's singing super high, but there's no striving here. He's abandoned into his head voice, and then he can enter back in. There's a playfulness and a freedom here that's allowing him to be so skilled if you want to get better at certain things with your voice, the last thing you want to do is mindless repetition or reps, like a normal weight training or even a normal, piano or playing a guitar. Like, no, you don't want to do that sort of thing. You don't want to go over and over again on things. You want to practice releasing into different sounds with your voice. And that's something that Michael is so incredibly good at. And this vocal performance shows a lot of that because of the playful nature of the melody itself.
I swear I'm keeping you satisfied, 'cause you're the one for me, the way you make me feel.
I always like hearing those little punches.
'Cause you're the
Like right in the middle of the breath. It just brings back humanity there. Like that's either a punch or a comp where they didn't get the breath quite right. But you don't hear that in the final mix.
making me feel. The way you make me feel. You really turn me on. You really turn me on. You knock me off of my feet now, baby. Off my feet. My lonely days not gone. My lonely days are gone.
I love it. The knock me off of my feet section, he does get that extra girthy, gritty sound. Just listen to the way he comes out of this section here. Just so amazing.
My lonely days not gone.
Put that in with just the snaps.
My lonely days not gone.
Perfect pocket. Let's put it in with just the shaker.
My lonely days not gone. Gone, girl.
So cool.
Gone. Ow! Gone, girl.
What a wonderful mixed voice sound here. The gritty mix.
Gone, girl.
That isn't really sung, but the pitches,
Gone, girl.
he's kind of just yelling, but his voice has fallen into pitches sort of what sounds like almost unintentionally. It's almost like he's just, go, 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 go. And these pitches work.
Gone, girl.
Yeah, but it's not like he's going, go. It's not like he's doing something like that. He's not hitting it for the note's sake. It's the expressiveness sake. And those pitches just kind of fell where they may as he expressed in that moment. I think that's an important distinction for us to make as performers. It's not always about trying to hit certain notes. Actually, it's a lot of times not about trying to hit certain notes.
I never felt so in love before. The promise, baby, you'll love me forevermore. I swear I'm keeping you satisfied, 'cause you're the one for me.
Now listen here. I'm going to play this section again. Listen to all the different tones coming out of his voice.
Love me forevermore.
He's super dark on more. And listen here.
Love me forevermore.
At the more. If I take the notes out of there and just sort of imitate the placement, he's super like nasal and not nasal here. And super if I just kind of at the more. That's an interesting thing to internalize and sort of muse on with your own voice as well. He's constantly moving his placement around, which is what gives his vocal tone, his overall vocal tone, so much variety. And then right here,
I swear I'm keeping you satisfied.
again, we have that sort of reverse sigh. I see! Right there.
I swear I'm
I swear! Where this isn't really a note. This is just sort of this squeak.
keeping you satisfied.
And hear how he trails off on satisfied? Satisfied. It's almost as though he ends in head voice as he releases into this vibrato.
You satisfied.
You even hear that sigh. Satisfied. I'm really exaggerating that. But I get a lot of people asking, how do I develop vibrato? Well, the very first way to develop vibrato is practice releasing into your head voice on certain notes. You don't hear, unless you're singing opera, you don't hear a lot of vibrato in pop and rock music that's super strong. A lot of times it trails off in head voice. Start listening for that, and you'll see what I mean.
'Cause you're the one for me, way you make me feel. You really turn me on. You really turn me on. You knock me off of my feet now, Debbie. My lonely days are gone. My lonely days are gone.
I love that timing difference there on that particular line. So just again, shows so much freedom.
Now, Debbie. My lonely days are gone. My lonely days are gone. Way you make me feel. The way you make me feel. You really turn me on. You really turn me on. You knock me off of my feet now, Debbie.
I just love the knock me off of my feet character.
My lonely days are gone. My lonely days are gone.
Now this next session where he just really starts drilling down into improv and his own gritty voice, that soulfulness comes out in amazing ways.
Ain't nobody's business. Ain't nobody's business. Ain't nobody's business. Ain't nobody's business but mine and my baby.
Yeah. I've made this observation before, and I know I'm not the first person to make this observation, but the way when he really starts getting into his improv sections and playing with the rhythm in this type of setting, he sounds like a horn player, or like he's mimicking the phrasing of a horn player, or a sax. You know, the smoky sax in the back of the club sort of sound. Another wonderful thing we can pull from Michael Jackson's singing. Yeah, we've talked a lot about him being different characters and having different tones, but what about thinking like a different instrument, like you've heard different instruments phrase? Ugh.
Ain't nobody's business but mine and my baby.
Pulling that time way back.
Give it to me. Give me some time. Come on, be my girl. I want you to be mine. Ain't nobody's business. Ain't nobody's business but mine and my baby.
I love that line. Listen to the way it pulls time with the consistency of the claps.
Ain't nobody's business but mine and my baby.
Ugh.
Go on, girl. Oh! Hee-hee. Woo!
Yeah. Such a simple thing to do with your mind, but it's placed masterfully.
Go on, girl. Hee-hee. Hee-hee.
And then the wonderful out improv and close. We'll put the background vocals in for this section.
Give it to me. The way you give me some time. Come on, be my girl. I want you to be mine. Ain't nobody's business. Ain't nobody's business but mine and my baby. Go on, girl.
It's interesting. These vocals sound a bit more saturated than I feel them to be in the full final mix. But it's a neat sound. I mean, it fits, and you hear this in a lot of modern vocal production as well, where you've dialed up the saturation. And back then they didn't have all the neat plugins we have today, but you're adding distortion to your already compressed voice. And then putting reverb on top of that, it glues it in a wonderful way to the front of the mix and allows the rest of the mix to breathe and the vocals not to be harsh while still being fully prominent and sort of stuck at the front of that mix. You have to do a lot less automation and fader moving and manipulation of even EQ when you've got your saturation and compression right for the mix on your vocals.
Give it to me. The way you give me some time. Come on, be my girl. I want you to be mine. Ain't nobody's business. Ain't nobody's business but mine and my baby.
Yes. Great song. Balanced simplicity in the performance and arrangement. One of my favorites. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Again, if you'd like more help with your own voice and your musical endeavors in general, click that link below and join my free course. We'll see you for more.